you agreed, you didn't submit a letter. For the record, you are agreeing to now the RR10 designation.
That is correct.
Which would move you into Group 1.
That is correct. And I would also like to say that because the parcel is, let me just conclude and say I support that. That's fine.
I think that'd be good. Thank you. Lloyd Weir, please.
Hello, my name is Lloyd Weir, and I'm speaking on GPU 25-2007. Also sent you a letter concerning this parcel. I'm here representing the subdivision immediately to the west of this proposed parcel. Three of our neighbors are here today with me, and I am speaking for them, so we don't take us up as much time. Would like to ask you not to change the Ag 40 zoning to RR5 for a couple of the reasons that Mr. Gorney has listed in his staff report, that this is totally almost all in the floodplain, and we do not believe there is any access to this piece of property. He did say there was a vineyard on it at one time. However, they apparently got there through a low water crossing. We have limited water on our subdivision. We all have wells. We've been there between 7 and 10 years, the 5 of us, landowners, and we would ask you not to jeopardize our future water supply in this watershed area. I believe this would be problematic. It tends to go along the lines of the island zoning. We are just very scared and very concerned that we will be losing some of our resources if this goes through. Ask you to reconsider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weir. Any additional speakers to the 9 items before us? Okay, that concludes public comment testimony. Let's see, back to the board for questions on all 9, I guess would be the easiest way to take them. And then I'll look for approval or denial of the first 5, and then take up a secondary question of, do we wish to take up the additional 4? And then a secondary question to that of the decision on the individual 4. So questions on all 9. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, I'd like to see if we could move this forward and go to our original task of the day, which is to look at the 5. I think it might be unfortunate that we've kind of merged the public comment of the 2, one that we're taking specific action on today, the other that is actually a step removed from that process. So I'd like us to move forward and look at the 5 ones that we heard in detail, and we have notes from staff, and I'd like to take them individually because I don't believe that I'm prepared to support all of them, so I'd like to take each one of them as an individual direction to staff.
Okay, can I take questions from the board before we move to the individual?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, Supervisor Delaware.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, the parcel, albeit rather large, is surrounded by many, many small parcels. R1, R2, R5. Your request was R5. The revision is RMR20. Obviously, there's one in between, like a RR10. Is there a reason why we've jumped over that to an RR20?
Well, when we first looked at this issue, I think we looked at a half-mile range around the property, and I think the average acreage was a little over 3 acres per parcel. what we've got is a zoning island in reverse. Everything around it is developed with the exception of 140 and another small parcel. I'd really have to defer to Amy as to where we made that jump, but I think the jump was in consultation. And, it seems like, naturally I'd love to have 5s, 10s would be great, 20s is reasonable. We've got to this point in the process where we've, agreed to a 20-acre zoning, and while I think all you're doing is postponing an eventual problem, I think down the road, if those do get divided up into 20-acre parcels, you're going to be right back discussing it, because if you look at the map, it's totally surrounded by many 1-acre parcels and 2-acre parcels. So, realistically, is this the ultimate answer to the question? I don't think so. I think you'll be readdressing it later. In our discussions, it seemed like a reasonable alternative at the time, or maybe the only alternative we had.
Okay, because I didn't have any heartburn with the original request, but when it came back for another look, so Mr. Gorney, if you could help me understand, because to me, the 5-acre is actually larger parcel sizes than what's existing all the way around, or almost all the way around, as Mr. Anderson stated. Why such a jump to 20s?
Well, I
My
think to
concern
be
is here-
frank, everyone's trying to avoid, an EIR. Everyone's
Yeah.
trying to avoid, a different group than Group 1. And in the negotiations and the consultation with the consultant for this applicant, he's ably represented by his consultant, I would say, it was felt that we could be supportive of placing it or recommending it for Group 1 with those larger acreages. The other thing is that there was some concern by the city of Fort Bragg, watershed type courses. I think that entered into it. I don't know if there's any further explanation, but if the applicant wanted to present something different now, then our recommendation would be different to you also. And
Well,
if he wants to stay in Group 4 and be on his own and process an EIR, well, that's his prerogative.
No, I understand that. There's 2 parcels here that, is there not, Mr. Anderson, that you have? Was it looked at to, and I understand the 20s being a lesser impact to bump it into this EIR, I understand that part. But with the separate parcel, say the northern parcel, it seems to be a much smaller one, was there any discussion about a 10-acre designation on that one and still falling into this ability?
I don't recall. No, there was not.
I might defer to Amy if she has any comments, but she really took the lead for me in this, and we discussed it and agreed that 20 was a reasonable
Okay.
resolution. I know there were some other comments that came up with other alternative approaches that we might consider taking that weren't exactly to my liking, and that may very well have been what drove it to a 20-acre decision. But it seemed to me at the time, and correct me, Amy, if I'm wrong, that pretty much the only alternative at this point was to be looking at 20-acre a zoning of 20 acres. And like I said, I think down the road, you'll be readdressing this because it's just absolutely, it's a zoning island in reverse, and it's pretty obvious by looking at the map. And I think you'll be, addressing it later, but at this point, we are satisfied with the 20-acre zoning.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Pinchas.
Being we're going to take these individually, why don't we start out with that one or move it forward? Go with the recommendation.
Let's just take them as listed on second page of the staff report. And the first one being Simpson as the applicant, GPU 04207. We'll just go right down that list. How's that?